Thank you for the opportunity to give this presentation this afternoon. Yeah, the subject that we're talking about is culture change and employee engagement. I'll be sort of talking through sort of the first sort of half an hour, and invited Ian Pemberton from Human Focus to pick up the theme as well, focus around behaviour change themes. So just by a bit of quick overview about our company, our group, and where we fit within the supply chain. The sort of things that we offer as Thor Atkinson. We design, fabricate, install all aspects of steelwork, non-structural, structural, including cladding. Also screens and conveyors, both sort of land aspects and marine. We can also support the industry with condition surveys and reports, steel frame buildings of all different shapes and sizes, plant hire as well, plant recovery and plant installations, contract crushing and demolition, trading as L&R contractors. My role is the health and safety advisor for that group of activities, and I've had a range of experience. Since I started out with Tarmac many years ago, I've worked in construction, petrochemical, rail, switchgear, sort of manufacturing and maintenance environments. So culture change, employee engagement. What is culture, organisational culture, and why is it so important? If you search the net for culture change, you'll come up with a whole load of interesting articles and a range of information. What I want to do this afternoon, and grateful for, is just to share with you our perspective as Thor Atkinson and what it means to us, and the journey we've been on this year to change our culture and to improve the way that we engage with our employees. What I'm sharing with you on this slide is just one example of a perspective. It's important because culture exists whether you plan for it or not. And what we set out to do this year is to strategically design a culture that will keep us competitive and help us ensure the continued well-being of our employees. I'll leave you with a question just now: what is a competitive culture? And I'll come back to that towards the end of the presentation. If you just imagine for a moment that your company is a tree, this is a helpful example. The culture is the trunk that connects the root system with the branches, and it's integral to the structure and stability of the tree. So the better the root system, the stronger the trunk, the more vigorously the branches will flourish. So we set about this year strengthening our root system, which will in turn then promote a culture that will help our business and our people flourish. And this diagram, it just helpfully paints that picture where our root system is all about, systems, policies, processes, leadership, individuals and teams, and the different tools and methods that you'd use to develop that root system. And the better the root system, the stronger the culture is going to be, and the better the experience is going to be for those people, that the different touch points we have with the outside world, whether it be employees, potential employees, customers, etc., and stakeholders. The different tools and methods that we've adopted this year to help develop that root system will as well help us continue to create and sustain the environment in which our culture will thrive. And that, I think, is unique to any particular business, and you need to obviously work out what tools and methods you can use to achieve that, but also to demonstrate to the outside world that we're living our core values and our core behaviours. So we display the portrait that we want to. So culture change, what do you think you would need to change? So we've had a close look at the beginning of the year as a management team and decided, we may need to think about resetting our organisation's beliefs and attitudes. We may need to think about how people behave, and should we look at how we can change that and improve that, and in doing so, change the attitudes, some of the attitudes perhaps about the way we do things around here, but also change the environment in which people work. And thinking that through, we chose a model called the Culture Change Ladder, which has 5 categories that defines the nature of an organisation or organisations within an organisation. So at the bottom of the ladder, you have this pathological category where the general culture is defined by, well, who cares as long as we don't get caught. The next category up the ladder is the reactive, where people will say, yeah, health and safety is important because we do a lot after an incident. The next step up the ladder is the calculative category, where an organisation has lots of systems in place and manage hazards very well. Proactive, the next step up, is where your leadership and those values that you've established drive continuous improvement all the time. And the top of the ladder, generative, is where you're applying best practice, because across all areas of your business and employees, it just comes naturally. This slide just depicts that ladder with two critical requirements, really, in that to achieve culture change in this model, we need to ensure that everyone in the organisation is increasingly informed about what's required, risks, hazards, key objectives, etc. And in line with that we increase the trust and accountability within the organisation between employees and within the organisation structure. Increasingly informed, what do we particularly mean? Well, we want to make sure that throughout the business that everyone knows what to do and how to apply best practice to get it right. And increasing trust and accountability, yes, we need to know that people are accountable, but developing a culture where people will say, yes, you can count on me to get that right, whatever other pressures there might be within the workplace. Thinking about the journey that we kind of established by adopting something like the culture change ladder, where can you begin to climb up that ladder? And perhaps a good place to start is to just go back to basics and rethink what have we done to ensure the health and safety and welfare of our employees in the workplace, one of our general duties. What have we done to make sure that we provide the right information, instruction, training and supervision to ensure the health and safety of our employees in the workplace? And what is our motivation for that? Is it purely the financial motivation, that it's a legal obligation, if we don't get it right, we could get fined? Or is there more to it around what we may call the moral compass and how we care for the well-being of our employees? So yeah, we've taken a good look at how we provide information, instruction and training supervision throughout the business and the quality of that and where we can improve it. We also identified investors in people as a key partner to help understand culture change for our business and how we might achieve that. In December, January, almost a year ago, we worked with IEP and we conducted an employee survey over 2 months, based on a question set that some of you may be familiar with around the 9 core criteria shown in this slide, but also picking up key aspects of diversity and inclusion, because we wanted to make sure that all of our employees had the right understanding of all the protected characteristics and how the diversity, inclusion, and equality requirements sort of apply to where we work and any issues that we may have. Just going back one slide, the whole IEP framework, Investors in People framework, really just aligns with the management team ambition this year to lead, support, and improve in the way we engage with our employees. And that employee survey was very good, and we ended up with a set of recommendations. I've just copied here a few examples where, with the support from the Investors in People consultant, we're able to look very carefully at what core values and required behaviours we'd established and how we might change those. The same with our code of conduct policy and equality and diversity policy. The fourth item there is focusing around what sort of learning and development programs do we have in place to improve behaviour and performance within our employees. Regarding wellbeing, introducing mental health and wellbeing approaches. So earlier in the year, we've trained mental first aiders and sort of embedding that support within the business. And the sixth point there about what sort of recognition and reward process have you got in the workplace that will recognise and promote the positive behaviour displays that you may see or do see from time to time. The journey with IEP raised the question, what are your core values? Do you know what they are? Have you communicated them? And we did reset them. We had a number of core values that had been shared for some time, but we reset them. And this is just an example here of some of those core values where we re-emphasise the fact, we do not discriminate. We value the role and contribution of each employee, and we ensure that health and safety is never compromised for any other objectives. And through a period of consultation and working with the management team, all these core values were developed with employees, and earlier in the year sort of republished, and have helped us help set the direction for this year. Thinking about the learning and development program that was in the recommendations, it fits well with the under the increasingly informed objective we have on the culture ladder journey. We partner with Human Focus, where we can access ROSPER approved e-learning courses and a lot more. And I thought it was really good to get Ian to take part in this presentation today, because there's a lot more that Ian will be able to share with you. But the Human Focus partnership has been really valuable for us this year in terms of what we've been able to achieve. We've used the Human Focus training tools to deliver equality diversity training for everybody within our business, and we continue to use that as part of our basic induction set. The training is delivered online, and each employee has a personal Human Focus account where they access the training, and it's always there for them to access whenever they want to. We've also used the Human Focus training modules to deliver behavioural safety themes as well. And in the beginning, those raise that awareness and introduce the discussions around understanding what motivates behaviour, what the triggers are, what are the consequences of actions that the employees take, and why employees will make decisions to take what you may call unnecessary risk, knowing that there's a danger. And thinking about the payoffs. Why does somebody do something that they know to be dangerous? Perhaps in this example here on the screen, if the individual thinks that he is late for something, he may take a risk. It's going to be quicker. So as the final outcome or result, he's going to save time, but he's taken a shortcut, taken a risk that perhaps he shouldn't have done. So that the quality of those training materials is very good, and we find that very helpful. And the behavioural safety training is just an ongoing part of our training plans this year. With Human Focus, we can use personal identity cards if we choose to. We don't use them at the moment, but each employee does get a unique QR code, and we've started to share these QR codes on our competency letters. So if you were to scan that QR code just now, you'll bring up a live training record for one of our employees, Josh Jones, and you can see his full competence profile, which includes all of the training he's done on Human Focus and any other external training that we've uploaded onto his profile. With employee engagement, it can be as simple as just talking to each other, which is essentially what we do a lot of. We've introduced, whilst we continue with toolbox talks and workshop briefings and other training investments, personally, I've been doing a lot of one-to-one sessions with employees to get them fully engaged with their human focus journey, but to discuss in this final quarter of the year, particular health topics around hearing, hand-arm vibration, and hand safety. We have obviously chosen various tools and methods to help us focus on culture change. I've mentioned investors in people. I've just talked about human focus, but we've also chose to apply for a ROSPER award this year. First time we've done that. And we also committed in January to get registered with ISO Quality ISO 45001. So ROSPER, our aspiration is to go for gold. Some of you may be familiar with the application process. There's a basic 10 points of evidence you have to provide. I've copied here a couple of the key ones. Evidence how your organisation engages with your workforce and what the benefits have been, and also what you're doing to go above and beyond in leading on health and safety in the work and outside of the workplace. The gold criteria for ROSPER applications: excellence in management systems and culture, rigorous approach, high levels of compliance. And what did we achieve this year? Well, we managed to get silver, which we were really pleased with. We thought we would get bronze as a first time application. And the feedback that we have from the ROSPER auditors essentially saying, we've achieved a high level of performance, and that's underpinned by our management systems, which are delivering continuous improvement. And with that feedback, we've reset our action plan for ROSPER, and we're going to go for gold again next year. And one of the constructive comments from ROSPER in the feedback they provided was looking at how we can further engage with health and safety representatives in the workplace. So we've got, having now part of the awards community, that's something that we can particularly focus on with ROSPER and help shape that for 2021. The summary of this, the silver award, basically demonstrates that we have a satisfactory health and safety management system and a culture, and that we're improving, reducing accident rates, no fatal injuries, no enforcement issues. During the year, we continue to focus on how well we're doing around eliminating discrimination, being proactive in those areas of equal opportunities and diversity. So whilst ROSPER is a clear focus on health and safety, we looked at construction line, and we having set the full common assessment standard as kind of a benchmark back in December a year ago, we felt construction line would be another worthwhile application process that our employees could be engaged with. So we did that a few months back and have managed to achieve the gold membership with construction line. So ISO 45001 is perhaps an obvious objective for any business to work towards. It's got a particular emphasis on consultation and participation of workers, and participation in development planning, implementation, performance evaluation, and actions for improvement. So having made a commitment to this as a management team back in January, that was an exciting commitment to help shape how we develop the engagement with our employees, how we get them to participate, and looking at ways of breaking down all the different barriers to how you can get people involved. And one of the barriers, one of the tools that we've been really helpful in breaking down barriers around time, access to materials, is the Human Focus platform, and how we've been able to put our own content onto Human Focus to deliver information, whether it be policy documents, whether it be risk assessments. We're currently going through final preparations for a FORS audit, and we've been able to share a lot of information with our driver team through our Human Focus account and the personal accounts that each of our drivers have. So it's been a really good way of getting people involved and participating in various aspects of our management systems. 45001 fits very well with the culture change journey, the model that we've adopted. we're ultimately aiming to achieve a level of generative culture, and following the framework that ISO 45001 provides. The aim is build resilience, develop engagement with workers, improve our level of compliance, provide healthy workplaces, prevent injuries, and apply best practice. And that's a continual improvement cycle, which obviously audited by a UCAS accredited third party. Being an international recognised standard, it helps organisations demonstrate the level of knowledge and experience they have in managing health and safety. Also helps demonstrate the desire to protect employees and others, and also a genuine commitment to providing a safe and decent workplace. Our 45,001 audit was last week, so it was quite a busy week. We had 2 auditors with us over 4 days. How did we get on? Well, we achieved it, which is fantastic. Great team effort. But not only 45,001, we were audited for 14,001 at the same time. So we add those 2 new registrations to our 9,001 and 1090 awards. But it was essentially a really good team effort this year, despite all the disruptions. So we have quite in terms of our root system, we now have a level of sort of recognition of our commitment and dedication that our employees understand, have taken a major part in achieving, and will continue to take a major part in maintaining and improving aspects of our business. And it's a root system that defines our competitive culture. Behind each of these awards, there is a lot of work and improvement that has been evidenced around culture change and employee engagement. But it's down to the team. People like myself can't do it, by no means can do it on our own. It's all about how the team works together. And together we'll continue to work together to get safety, health, environment, quality right. And that's a key message. But there remains a key challenge to make sure that everyone in our workplace is able to and can take part on the ongoing journey that we're on. So just in summary, we know what our culture change journey looks like. We've adopted a culture change ladder, and we know sort of where we want to get to. And we've chosen key partners, investors in people, human focus, ROSPER, and ISOQuad to help us along that journey. And their support, along with key clients, has been invaluable this year and will continue to be into next year. It's a continual improvement cycle. So going up the ladder, we've achieved everything we wanted to achieve, plus more in terms of ROSPER Silver. And we just as we go through the management review process that closes out 2020, we reset for 21. Again, just going back to basics, relook at how we're providing information, instruction, training, and supervision. Are we being diligent? Are we being consistent? Continue developing the way we consult with our workforce and how they're able to participate. Continue to break down those barriers, ensuring that we're increasingly informing people in the workplace and that trust and accountability is developing. Continuing our ROSPER Achievement Award applications, aiming for gold, and our ongoing surveillance of our new 45,001 certificate. Have we changed our culture? Well, we think we have, but we need to continue to work to create a culture where, a culture of care, where leaders actually take an interest. They do, but we just got to keep investing in developing it. We want to keep encouraging our employees to keep an eye out for each other. We know it's not about checklists, audits, and more rules. It's got to be a focus on conversations. Whilst we must provide information, and that we know as well, we've got to have quality conversations in the workplace. To quote a particular individual about culture change, the way that people talk to each other in your organisation will really determine whether you're getting there or not. And you may well all sort of experience that from time to time. You get a sense from the culture in terms of how things are going within a team or within an organisation. So regarding behaviour change, we know we've still got work to do. So we've introduced a theme called Time Out, where we're encouraging people to take time to talk about things in the workplace, whether it's let's call it a safe act that they've observed or an unsafe act, but to be diligent and consistent in the way that they communicate. Don't walk past whatever they've seen. Have a discussion to promote the good behaviours that are going on, but also to highlight the not so good, or to essentially reward what is high performance and to promote compliance. To conclude, really, what difference can you make? For my story, I was greatly influenced in my 20s when I was working in petrochemical and delivering my fair share of induction training, hazard observation training at the time. And in an oil field setting down in Dorset, the Piper Alpha incident was very fresh, very raw. And the video content that I've just linked here and the images, that was stuff that we were using as part of the training material. And without fail, the imagery would just result in a number of people just in tears because it was just horrendous. But there's important messages that come back to information, instruction, and training and supervision. It's about continuing to be diligent and consistent with the way that you communicate, and to encourage you to continue to be diligent and consistent and make sure that in your context, everyone that you work with, you and your colleagues and any contractors, have the right information, the right instruction, the right training, and the right supervision whenever they're at work. Also continue to reinforce the core values as you understand them in your workplace, but also be prepared to effectively blow the whistle and take time out to talk about health and safety in the workplace. So, yeah, that brings my part of the presentation to an end. So I'm going to hand over to Human Focus, Ian Pemberton, and just to quote a couple of statements from their own website. Human Focus is a global leader in skilled behaviour change in the workplace. We know that from experience because we're using their tool, and they're definitely assisting us, not just by providing training materials, but in the way that we can work very closely and collaboratively with the staff, and the way they help us use the tool, but also develop it so it's a good tool for our employees to access.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. My name is Ian Pemberton. I'm Managing Director of Human Focus. The progress that you've achieved this year at Thor Atkinson is just amazing. And it's been brilliant just to see the work you've been doing there, and to have that summary in that presentation is just really helpful to see, and it's just fabulous progress. So I'd like to just sort of provide a bit of underpinning, so to speak, to what Jonathan has provided. So just very briefly, I'm Managing Director, Human Focus. This is a company that I established in 1992. So I've been in this space for over 30 years. I'm a chartered ergonomist or human factors specialist. I've always been involved in skill behaviour change, and basically my journey in a nutshell, when I came out of university as a young whippersnapper ergonomist, I got hired by QuickSave. Do you remember them? The retail discounters. And I was standing in a retail distribution centre doing manual handling training for these guys in how to lift. And the look that I got back from them ranged from open hostility through to, we've got a right smart Alec here. And after about 10 minutes, look, time out, what is going on here? And what I very quickly realized was that you have to work with people, and what you have to do is give them something that's useful and practical. And if it isn't, you're going to alienate them. And that was a very harsh early lesson that I learned nearly 30 years ago. And also, if you can get them involved, that is just massively powerful. And so, long and short of it, what I was giving them was this theory that didn't make any sense to them. And it didn't, they said, look, when we go back out there and try and put this stuff into action, it doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? So we worked with them, and they helped to develop content, and we adapted the principles, and it made for a very different kind of health and safety training. So these were some of the early lessons. So ever since, with Human Focus, what I've been about is trying to build content that's practical, useful, and ultimately helps with this thing called behaviour change. So this is me. I've written a couple of books. So this is a bunch of free resources. I'm happy to give stuff away. I've written a book about health and safety training, how you do it and how you make it effective. That's happy to send a free copy to anyone. It's not a heavy read. It's lots of anecdotes. It's a combination of what I've learned on my travels works with the science. And a lot of people have been kind enough to say that they found that very helpful. And I've done a similar thing in contractor management. I'm also regularly running free professional development webinars on this subject. These are not sales pitches. This is looking at the science, looking at the best practice. This is one I did recently, had very good attendance, excellent feedback. If you want to get in touch, I'll be happy to send you links to these events. As I say, they're completely free. This is the next one that's coming up, manual handling training, which I'm still involved with after all these years, but it's very, very different from when I started out. And that's on the 9th of December. Again, absolutely free, looking at some of the latest technology and how we can use that to support training in that space. So what I wanted to do then briefly, and I'm going to try my best here to leave a little bit of time at the end in case anybody's got any questions, is just give you a brief whirlwind tour of some of the things, some of the tools I've developed, some of the work I've been doing in this space, some of which Jonathan has already alluded to. So with Human Focus, we are about providing online technologies to help our clients ultimately change health and safety culture. And the first area that we do that on is e-learning. I'm sure you're familiar with e-learning, but there are some differences that we've developed. This is what it looks like. It's can be taken on a desktop, mobile. We're using high quality 3D CGI graphics, which allows us to zoom in, go in and look at things, create accidents that would be very difficult with live video. All of our courses are independently approved. Jonathan's alluded to the ROSPER course, but we have many other course approvers. And the key thing is that sitting behind it is the ability to prove who's done what, compliance reports that help clients like Thor Atkinson to actually be able to go into ISO standard compliance and say, look, this is who's taken it, this is what their results are. So we can build portfolios. And as you're going to see in a minute, a key element that we've learned over the years is we have off-the-shelf content, but it's also about helping clients to get their content online too. We are very active in the quarrying and aggregate space. One of our main clients is Tarmac, obviously Thor Atkinson, but there are others too. And we have built up a library of training content that is quarrying aggregates specific. So, going into best practice, what can go wrong and so on. And this is what some of that content looks like. So that's e-learning. The other module that we have is what we call Content Builder, and this is what Jonathan has started to use to get his content out. And essentially, what this allows clients to do is they can capture videos on a dedicated app of skills demonstrations. They can also post PowerPoints, documents, and they can very rapidly get that up there as e-learning and also as digital work forms. So this is just a brief little video of a client who's actually filming one of these little skills demos, and then you're going to see what it looks like when they've loaded it.
Hold up. Turn it down. Make sure your knife is in good condition and you got everything on it.
Ready? Whenever you place your ladder, make sure it's always on a clean, steady surface.
So that's the app, and you can load those videos and they can become interactive e-learning very easily. And this is what it looks like when it gets up there.
You get back here, you make sure you look at the hazards.
So the videos typically are broken into sections. And as you're going to see in a minute, you can create graphical drag and drop questions based on your video.
It's going to be tagged out to repairs.
And best of all, as you can see, this is an American client. The content is all in the local language, culture, and is therefore much more authoritative because it's their own people showing their own people best practice. So there you go. There's an example of a interaction that's been built out from that. And that whole little e-learning course probably authored and posted up there in less than sort of 20 minutes, half an hour. Very, very quick and easy to do. Final module I just want to briefly show you is digital checklists. So you can load, again, your own inspections, audits, risk assessments. We've also got a big library of checklists that you can use, like accident incident reporting. And then all of these forms then can be handled digitally. We can do scheduling, alerting to remind people to do things. There's a management dashboard that shows you who's done what when, and there's an action problem reporting system too. And as I say, there's lots of off-the-shelf forms that you can use, but it's also easy to load your own stuff. Now, that's just briefly what we do. What I want to do now is just really get into a little bit of the behavioural science to say, how do we actually make this work for us to change culture, and just give you a quick flavour of that. Well, we know from the science that in order to change behaviour, and that's our sort of unique position, what we're trying to do here is get to more than just giving a bit of knowledge. We're trying to change people's behaviour, because ultimately, if you want to change culture, you have to change behaviour. And we know from the science that there's a minimum of 3 things you need to change your behaviour in any training system. You've got to provide instruction, and that instruction has to be as context specific as possible. It's got to be, this is your job, this is what good looks like, and this is what we want you to do. We know that just providing instructions rarely enough. You've then got to trigger the behaviour. You've got to remind people. And when they actually have a go and you've triggered the behaviour, you've got to provide feedback. And this is a process. It's not a one-off event. We know that changing behaviour is ongoing, and typically it's done in baby steps. You do not change significant behaviours overnight. So it's got to be a process, not a one-off event. And if you've got those 3 elements in place and you make it an ongoing process, you have the basis of a training system, and you have at least some chance of changing behaviour. So let me give you some examples of how the technology I've just shown you, how we pull all this together and show some actual applications of how we've helped clients to implement this towards behaviour change. So very briefly, the 3 models you've just seen consider different parts of this, e-learning for instruction, content builder, because you want to build your own content. We can trigger behaviours through the e-learning system saying, hey, you need to go and do this now. And again, on feedback, we can provide people with feedback we've observed you doing this. Here you go. This is our assessment of that. And we can also use the e-checklist module, that these 2 steps of triggering and feeding back. So triggering, again, scheduling and alerting, reminding people that it's time to do something. And then feedback is basically they've done it. We can see they've done it. So let's look at some actual examples. Here's the first. First thing we can do is we have a QR code system. We can put QR codes on equipment, on walls. Here's an example of mobile plant equipment. Before they fill in a checklist, we can put little micro learning on there to remind them of the things that we want them to look at. So then learning becomes learning at the moment of doing, rather than something that's done away from the job. So we can actually implant it into work processes. And then the triggering is through e-checklist. So we could have, for example, an inspection assessment, a weekly inspection of a piece of kit. They can take video, they can take photographs, they can load that back up to the system. And then feedback becomes being able to see that and being able to go into reports and say, well, what have they actually looked at? Have they done a decent job on this assessment? And so it goes around in a circle. So this is a simple training system. We're building skills and over time changing habits, because people are doing it, we're observing and we're feeding back. Another example. This is a project we did with a trade association on moving portable toilets. The people who come probably to some of your sites on the welfare units, and this was an MVQ, and it was about how to load these things off and on lorries and how to service them. So instruction was task-specific instruction. This is how you load a toilet. So this is a brief clip.
And so, when loading the Mongo, it's important to have toilet units towards the listing aid, with the door of the toilet away from you. This means that the centre of gravity of the toilet is positioned over the wheels of the
e-learning
Mongo,
content that
this
client was able to produce very rapidly. They had this content in PowerPoints, but they were able to load it up to the system. So people then take this as the theory, and then we trigger it. So we go out to local site managers, say, we now need you to capture a little bit of video of somebody doing this for assessment, and this is what it looks like.
Okay, Carl, so we're now going to do section 11 on the NVQ. It's lifting the toilet on and off the vehicle.
Okay.
There's certain things we need to make sure we video for you to pass this module.
Pull it to myself, the toilet. Take it to the tail lift. Lower it on the tail lift. Take the trolley out. Rotate the toilet round, doors facing the back.
So these clips are typically 1 to 2 minutes in length, aimed at specific steps in a skill process. They then get loaded automatically to the system, and then designated assessors can go in, click on the icon, go and have a look at that clip. They can assess it, they can watch the clip, they can put some comments in there saying, you know, you've done this well, you've not done this so well. And then that as a package of information automatically goes back out to the trainee and the mentor. And the science is that this is a very powerful way of providing feedback, rather than, you know, somebody standing there with a clipboard saying, well, I just watched you and you've made 3 mistakes. Actually showing somebody themselves doing it and inviting them into that process. It's very, very powerful. It's visual, and it invites them into the process of assessment. So that there again is a training process. They can go and see their process over time. They can have multiple goes at it. And again, this is about building skills and changing habits. This is this is one that is close to my heart, manual handling training. So again, we can build context-specific training and how to lift, how to carry. This is about this is an example on the training card system that Jonathan mentioned earlier that Thor Atkinson have started to use. So what we're able to do here is obviously record all the training that an individual has taken, and that's not just on the human focus system, but also any other training. So you can load certificates from external training events. This is just one client who has loaded their own induction. So this is the first training that a trainee would take coming into the organisation. And then this is the training card system in action.
Cool. Can I just verify your ID badge there?
So in this particular example, the way this client is using it is actually for contractor management. So all the contractors coming onto site previously would be required to take that kind of site induction. And then, as you've seen, anybody wandering around the site, they've got using the training card system, they can just scan the code and they can see immediately then in real time all the training records, including a copy of the certificate, and see what's current and what's not. And as you saw there, it gives them a little flag to say green. They've got all the training that you can set up your own menus for different sites, different teams. So it gives it a green flag to say this person has taken all the training that you require of them or not. So that makes it visible, transparent, and easy to check. What we can also do for feedback is we can use the checklist system, and we can go and actually observe people, in this instance, contractor employees doing work. We can use the smiley face system and go, you've done a good job. And then that, as a little report, gets parceled up and goes back out to, it could be that individual's manager, but in this instance, it was that organization's operator manager. So it would go to that contractor, say, this one of your people has just done this job for us on this site. Here's our rating. Here's the photos. Here's the video of them doing. So it's all about trying to get some feedback into the system. And yeah, again, that's helping to build skills, change habits. So this is the final one, and it is the manual handling one that I was referring to on the previous slide. So again, we can build context-specific training for any task, any job, and we do that regularly for clients, or they build it themselves. So this is what good looks like. This is what we need you to do. We can then alert and say we need a little video clip of this individual doing this training, please. So a local person would take that, load it to the system, and now what we're using increasingly is artificial intelligence technology that can automatically scan video and do basically a full postural analysis. Now, I can tell you, 30 years ago, when I was an ergonomist at university studying this stuff, this was like science fiction, and you'd need a couple of £100,000 worth of kit to do this. Now you can do it on a mobile phone, and it's free, and it's just amazing. So basically, this just comes standard now. There's no additional cost to this. In fact, it's cutting cost. It takes out a lot of the friction out of the system, provides automated feedback, and it just comes as a standard part of the e-learning that we offer. So this is one instance of where technology is really helping to drive improvements and reduce cost. So those are just a few examples of the kind of behaviour change training system that we're trying to build on an ongoing basis, and the kind of work we've done with Jonathan. I just wanted to put up those are our contact details. Please get in touch if you've got any queries or any questions. I'm going to stop sharing now and open up the floor to any questions now, if there are any.
How did your company cope with, during the COVID-19 from the outset through to now, changes in culture? What were the challenges to your workforce and how did you react to that?
Is that a question for me or Jonathan?
No, Jonathan, sorry.
For me, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can give a straightforward answer to that, but, it was never going to be easy, but there's a lot of my colleagues work very hard to deal with the issues day by day. And I'm not going to say it was easy, but, there was quite a lot of people on furlough, a lot of uncertainty. I think the key is good communication, and throughout the initial lockdown period, people like our HR manager and her team were in contact with people every day who were not in work, just to keep in contact, make sure they're okay. That's the sort of mental health side, well-being focus that other key personnel within our company take a key role on. So I think that was essentially an important part, is just keeping the lines of communication, even if you're home working or on furlough, just keeping in contact with people. If our HR manager was part of the presentation, she'll probably give you a bit more of a detailed answer about the aches and pains during the journey. But for me, communication. And for example, we were able to keep people engaged with training because wherever they were, they still had access to their personal human focus accounts. They were still able to communicate and keep in touch with people. Does that partly answer your question?
There's a text question here for you, Jonathan, about could you tell the group more about how you've engaged with your senior management and got them on board with the process that you described? Well,
I joined the Thor Atkinson business in about a year ago, and my role at the time I joined was health and safety manager, and I took on the challenge of driving the improvements. So straight away I had the ear of the directors and the owners of the business, and I still do have that. And when I laid out the particular strategies and investments that I thought would be appropriate for 2020. All I can say is at the moment the commitment was there, the leadership was there, the finance was there. Everything we wanted to do for 2020, they committed to and have been committed to it throughout this year. And then in December, we'll sit down again as part of our management review process. We'll outline what we want to do to build on 2020 for next year, commit the finances and just go it again. But it's a close team effort with, I would again stress, the good communication week in, week out.
And there's another question here around excellent presentations. Many thanks. May I ask what your collective view is on creating or perpetuating a no blame culture?
Well, do you want to take that first, Ian?
Yeah, happy to do that. The leading light in this space is Henry Drecker, and he points out that it's not about blame or no blame or even where you draw the line. Ultimately, it's about whether everybody in the organisation, whether they trust the people who get to draw the line. It's fundamentally all about trust. Because there are times where there will need to be blame. And in fact, if you look at the evidence, a lot of the time it is frontline people who are asking for some blame if they see reckless behaviour. So it's about trust. And so senior management need to understand how to handle that. Building trust is a skill like any other. And it's amazing how people do rise up to the top of management ladders and are lacking in that basic skill. They don't seem to understand just simple principles. One example is consistency of action and word. And if you're not consistent, it damages trust. So it's about trust. It's about building trust. And I would add one other thing to it, which I've come across, which is that it's a truism that 100% of accidents involve human error. Ultimately, somebody somewhere will make a mistake which triggers the accident. And as we all know, that error is usually the last in a long line of problems, so-called underlying root causes. And so, to point the finger at that last action is usually, pretty futile. But what is important, what is vital, is that everybody within the organisation understands the mechanics, the human factors of these errors. Because a lot of the time, what looks like a stupid mistake, we've all even probably chided ourselves. Oh, why did I do that? That's so stupid. They are underpinned by psychological processes. And I'll just give you one example. Skilled behaviour, by its very nature, you are handing over control of that to an autopilot inside your head. You can do amazing things without any conscious thought whatsoever. In fact, if you had to think consciously about all the things you did every day, life would be impossible and very boring. So we have this autopilot. And what that means is that paradoxically, the more skilled we become, the more prone we become to certain kinds of skill-based errors. And so what can look like a stupid action is, in fact, a deeply ingrained process that we have to understand that. So it's important that frontline people understand that, so that's a really good news story, because it helps them understand that actually there are reasons why this is happening. It's not my fault, actually. I can come forwards and get a sympathetic ear. It's important that the people investigating it understand this stuff, because a lot of accident investigations, the people doing it don't have that knowledge and don't have the skills and the tools to go into those human errors and factors to really get to the root of the problem. So those would be the two things I would put in: trust and a deep understanding of the human factors. These are two things that underpin getting to that no blame or dealing with that blame issue. Anything you'd add to that, Jonathan?
Well, in the context of what we've been doing this year, good engagement, communication, making sure we've got good quality information, instruction, training and supervision, and shared core values and behaviours. And when near misses do occur, where incidents do occur, it's again the quality of the conversations you have when you identify the root causes. And I would use the terms the just culture. Just echo that, because if there is reason to discipline individuals for their behaviours, well, there's obviously a time for that. But in many occasions, I think echoing what Ian was saying, the root cause of what's gone on does not lie with the individual that's triggered the event. There's something else has gone on to contribute to that. And you may be familiar with the Swiss cheese model, where if you've not, just Google it. But it's a recognised way of explaining how different layers of supervision have weaknesses, and sometimes those layers of supervision, those weaknesses, will line up the holes in the cheese, and it allows an accident flow to go all the way through to causing harm or damage. And it's the layers of supervision that can often be identified as the root cause of the problem, the weaknesses in the layer of supervision, rather than the individual at the front line.
At this point, I'd like to thank Jonathan and Ian for most informative presentation. I'm sure everybody present enjoyed it and found it very informative. And like Ian has mentioned, if you need any further information, please make contact with Ian. You can share your details with me, and if anybody wants it, they can make contact with myself and I can pass it on.
Certainly will do. I'd just like to say thank you for the invite. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for taking the time out to just consider culture change and employee engagement. I'm happy to provide any more sort of information. Just send us an email or give us a phone call just on our journey and what we're aiming to do for next year.
Well, thank you ever so much for all your attendance, and once again, Ian, Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.